This is not just another international headline. This is a moment that exposes how global power truly works. South Africa, the only African nation representing an entire continent at the G20, has been quietly pushed aside. What appears on the surface as a diplomatic adjustment is, in reality, a calculated political message. When Africa speaks independently, it is punished. The G20 is one of the most powerful platforms in the world. It shapes global financial systems, international trade rules, and economic priorities that affect billions of lives. South Africa's presence in this group has never been symbolic. It has been Africa's single seat at a table where decisions are made for the entire planet. Removing or freezing South Africa's influence is equivalent to silencing 1.4 billion African voices. Recent diplomatic signals indicate that South Africa has been marginalized within G20 processes. No formal announcement was made, and no direct ban was declared. However, in global politics, exclusion rarely comes with public statements. Influence is reduced quietly, invitations are delayed, and participation is weakened behind closed doors. This is how powerful nations apply pressure without accountability. The timing of this freeze is critical. It follows South Africa's bold decision to challenge Israel at the International Court of Justice over alleged violations of international law in Gaza. This move positions South Africa as a defender of global justice rather than Western political interests. While many nations privately shared concerns, few dared to act. South Africa did, and the consequences were immediate. Western powers, particularly those aligned with Israel, viewed South Africa's legal challenge as a direct threat to established alliances. Rather than addressing the substance of the case, political pressure began to mount. South Africa was framed as problematic, disruptive, and disobedient. Its commitment to an independent foreign policy became its greatest offense. Donald Trump's influence looms large over this development. Although no official statement bears his name, Trump has repeatedly criticized South Africa and openly opposed global South solidarity. His political philosophy is clear: countries must align with Western power structures or face exclusion. Under this worldview, neutrality is unacceptable, and independence is treated as rebellion. Trump's political allies and ideological supporters continue to shape international decision-making spaces. The marginalization of South Africa reflects a broader strategy to discipline nations that refuse to follow Western narratives. This is not about economics alone. It is about control, loyalty, and obedience within a system built long before Africa had a voice. Julius Malema's response to the situation has electrified public discourse across Africa and beyond. The leader of the economic freedom fighters did not attempt quiet diplomacy. Instead, he directly confronted the system he believes was never designed to respect African nations. Malema called for a total boycott of global structures that marginalize Africa while exploiting its resources. According to Malema, Africa must stop seeking validation from institutions rooted in colonial history. His message was direct and uncompromising. If Africa is not welcome at the table, then Africa must build its own. This statement resonated deeply with young Africans who increasingly question why the continent remains tied to systems that consistently undermine it. Across Africa, public reaction has been swift and emotional. Many citizens see this incident as confirmation of long-held suspicions. Africa is celebrated when it complies, ignored when it speaks, and punished when it resists. The sidelining of South Africa feels personal to millions who see it as an attack on African dignity rather than a diplomatic disagreement. This moment extends far beyond South Africa. It sends a warning to every African nation that dares to pursue an independent foreign policy. If Africa's strongest economy can be marginalized, then smaller nations are even more vulnerable. The message is unmistakable: speak out, and you lose your seat. At the same time, this incident may accelerate a shift already underway. Africa is increasingly exploring alternatives to Western-dominated institutions. BRICS, South-South cooperation, and regional trade frameworks are gaining momentum. These platforms promise a more balanced global order, where Africa participates as an equal rather than a subordinate. That Africa's growing awareness is its greatest strength. The continent is young, digitally connected, and politically conscious. Africans are questioning inherited systems and demanding accountability from global powers. The freeze of South Africa may unintentionally fuel the rise of a more unified and assertive Africa. History shows that suppression often backfires. Attempts to silence dissent frequently give rise to movements. The G20's treatment of South Africa may appear strategic in the short term, but in the long run, it exposes fear. A confident system does not need to silence opposing voices. The real question now is how Africa will respond. Will African leaders remain divided and cautious, or will they recognize this moment as a turning point? Unity has always been Africa's greatest challenge, but it is also its greatest potential strength. This is not the end of Africa's engagement with the world. It may be the beginning of a new chapter where Africa defines its own role, sets its own priorities, and builds partnerships based on mutual respect. Africa does not need permission to exist at global tables. Africa is the foundation upon which those tables stand. If Africa stands together, no institution can ignore it, no summit can silence it, and no power can freeze it out. The future of Africa will not be decided in closed rooms without African voices. That era is coming to an end. United we rise. Africa will not be silent.